So I have had very little time to post book reviews. My last book review at the time of recording this was, I think, 3 months ago. So the only way I've been doing my book reviews has been during my time off. The problem with that is the only real downtime I get to myself at home is in the middle of the night. So I usually like to use that time to write, but I can't really do that if I'm having to take the time to write scripts and then record the scripts and then edit the scripts and then post the scripts, and it's just too much. So right now I'm currently recording this review on my way to work in my niece's car that I'm driving to see if it'll overheat. I'm sure I could have chosen a better time to test if a car is going to break down, especially not a time when I'm running about 10 minutes late for work, but you got to do what you got to do. So right now I'm going to attempt to do a review for Brandon Sanderson's The Final Empire, The Mistborn, the first book in the Mistborn series. I'm hoping to do just the trilogy as a whole, kind of put the reviews together and then post them all together in just one big video, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm not 100% sure. I'm currently about 60% through with Hero of Ages, so we'll just have to wait and see how long this particular review is going to be. But in regards to The Final Empire, I had been following Brandon Sanderson's YouTube channel for some time. I really liked his seminar, his class that he gave on creative writing. He recorded it and posted it online, him talking to this class. And I had already taken a creative writing class in college, but there was just something about, Sanderson's actual class that he gave that was really interesting. And I loved it a lot. Probably because he was already a very successful published author at the point of him doing that. And my creative writing teacher, even though I liked him a lot, was, a creative writing professor, an English professor. So I really enjoyed his creative writing course that he gave on his YouTube channel, Brandon Sanderson. And so I subscribed to his channel, and he was constantly posting all these cool things, like him doing book signings and talking about his books and the characters in his books. And so I really decided that, okay, I'm going to read his books someday. But I'd never read any, and it took me years, literal years, to finally decide to pick up a book. And the point that I finally officially decided that is I was finishing up with the previous book I was reading. I don't remember what it was. It might have been Princess of Mars, not 100% sure. But Sanderson posted a video, which I guess he does this pretty often, but he posted a short on YouTube basically saying, reading Brandon Sanderson, where should you start? All right, where should you start reading Brandon Sanderson if you want to start doing it right now? And I looked at his list and I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. And he said, start with the original Mistborn trilogy. So I said, you know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick it up. So I got the first book and I started reading, and I honestly was very bored. And it's an issue that I actually noticed a lot of other people seemed to have with the stories. And the thing that mainly pulled me to Brandon Sanderson was I saw people saying online that he was like this master of twists. Right? There was tons of twists in his story, and you can never guess where it's going to go, and you're just going to constantly be shocked by it. And I also read that he does this thing where he starts off kind of slow, and then he ramps up to like 110. by the end of the story. And I was like, man, that sounds cool. The problem was another truck just flashed their lights at me, and I'm not sure why. Do I have my lights on or something? No? Okay. Anyways, the problem was I didn't realize how slow this thing was going to be. And it was very slow at the beginning. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is action and there's intrigue and stuff, but I actually took a note, and I remember that I wasn't officially hooked into the story until like 250 pages in. Now, mind you, that's on my digital copy of the book, which I think has a different number of pages. So, you know, if you have the first book, don't open it up and flip to 250 pages and be like, whoa, how did it take them this long? Because I think it was closer to about 1/3, almost 1/2 through the book that I was officially hooked. And I'll tell you exactly when it was. It was the moment, there was two things that happened, right? And I don't remember what order they happened in, but basically Vin goes to her first party, and she meets Allyn, right? And I immediately was like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be interesting. You know, she leaves the party, and it's this immediate, like, taboo. You shouldn't have done that. But Ellen's such a funny, likable character from the start that I was like, yeah, I'm going to like this, whatever's happening here. This is going to be great. But then, the next thing that happened is Vin's old hideout is discovered by, I think it was by Inquisitors, and they go in, and it's this big, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? You know, let's go check it out. Let's go see if everything's okay. And it's just a slaughter, right? It is blood and guts, body parts. Everything is just destroyed. Everyone is destroyed. Everyone's just dead in this horrible, gruesome way. And it's kind of this real tone shift, because you haven't seen anything like that for the entire book up to that point. Right? Everything's been kind of quiet and just implied that there's going to be some violence, and I didn't think it was going to go to like gruesome, you know, borderline. If it was on a film, it would have been rated R kind of gore. I was like, whoa, what? Wait a minute, that's intense. So that's what we're doing, right? It was basically like, oh, so that's how this is going to go. I didn't truly know how it was going to go, right? Anyone who's read Sanderson knows, you know, you have no idea until you've made it through those first few books what it's like reading Brandon Sanderson. And so that's when I got hooked, and I was like, okay, now I'm interested in this story. Because at that point, up to that point, I had been very disappointed, right? I got to admit, the only thing that was keeping me reading the story, because keep in mind, I loved Vin, I loved all the characters, I loved the world, I loved the magic system. There was just something about the story that was just, it was a chore. I had to force myself to keep reading. And if I hadn't forced myself to keep reading just so I could get this review out, I wouldn't have continued the book. I would have put it down. But I forced myself to continue reading. I'm glad I did, because that was, the book ended up being just absolutely insane, right? The twists just blew my mind. I didn't know what the hell was going on. The action was insane. It was great watching Vin get to, you know, grow up and learn so many lessons, and it was, you know, it was heartbreaking at times. It was exciting, and I loved watching Vin go to these balls, right? I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. For some reason, I just loved the grandness of the balls, and then how beautiful it was, and the dresses, and seeing Vin go from being this little, you know, street urchin to wearing these beautiful gowns and hanging out with these beautiful rich people, all talking and scheming together, and you know, Ellen's just kind of sitting there, seemingly his his whole purpose in life just being to annoy her. I thought it was great. I loved all of it. And I couldn't help but, notice it's very, you'll notice a lot of parallels in stories. Sanderson seems to be more subtle than Pierce Brown, who I had recently read up to that point, with his allegories. I thought that the whole Kelsier thing was done very well, with his whole becoming a savior thing, and I was not expecting him to die. I gotta be completely sorry. I felt like he was going to die eventually, but I wasn't expecting him to die when he did and how he did. It was insane. I thought that, oh no, this is going to be intense, because they were going for that rescue of the people who had been captured. I think it was part of the crew that had been captured by Kelsier. He went in, and I thought, man, this is going to be intense. I don't know how they're going to get out of this, but they're going to get out of it. And then it just, all hell breaks loose, and Kelsier is fighting that Inquisitor, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, how's he doing that? It's this big grandeur, spectacle, and then he finally kills the Inquisitor, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that. How did he do that? And then the Lord Ruler shows up, and I'm just sitting there like, run. No, he basically wants to die, right? Because he wants to make himself into this big savior so that he can save the Ska people, and finally give them that push that they needed to rise up and not be afraid of the mists and rebel against the Lord Ruler. Okay, sorry, car was having some issues. And so he gives them that, and Vin, oh my gosh, like it's so emotional. It's Vin's battle with the Lord Ruler was insane. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And her, drawing on the mists for power and attacking the Lord Ruler, and then of course that final, with the moment with the Lord Ruler laying there, and his final words of, you have no idea what you've done. You don't know what I do for humanity. And then he's dead. And I was like, because I remember thinking, like, how could they possibly, like the way the story's going, how is Sanderson going to possibly make this story last for 3 books? It doesn't make any sense, because the Lord Ruler's dead. He's dying right now. Is he going to find a way to teleport away? Nope, he died. But with those last words, you don't know what I do for humanity, I was like, oh, there's something way deeper going on here. And I think I know what it is. I don't. I didn't. I had no idea what it is, and nobody reading this book knew what it was that he had planned. They might have had an idea, and I think I was, decently close to what the idea was. But it was still very interesting, and I loved it. So yeah, I went ahead and I finished the book, and I remember sitting there like, after I finished it, like, wow, this is, I didn't expect to, I went into the story expecting to like it, but I when I was at that halfway point, I pretty much hated the book, right? And since then, with me being, almost done with the final book in that original trilogy, I have seen people online, for example, in my, I think it was in my Red Rising fan group that I'm in on Facebook, somebody said, I just finished Lightbringer, now what do I do? Who can I read next? Because I don't know if anyone will be interesting enough, which is honestly something that a lot of people who read Pierce Brown are concerned with. Once they're done with his books, they're literally like, I don't think I'm going to be able to enjoy anything else again, because Pierce Brown is such a dynamic writer. There's so much going on all the time, and it's so intense. Pierce Brown is pretty much reading Pierce Brown is pretty much the equivalent of like scrolling through TikTok. Like there's always something going on, and it's always interesting. And so then when you go to something else that's slower, you're like, oh, this is the worst. You know, you're going from driving 100 miles an hour to work every day to now you have to drive only 10 miles an hour to work every day. And it drags. So a lot of people in the comments of that post were giving their suggestions. Read this, read that. And I suggested reading Mistborn. Right? Do it. Read Mistborn. Trust me. Just do it. And the girl said, you know, I tried to read Mistborn, but I gave up because it was too boring. And I said, and you know, I told her, I said, no. I said, trust me. I know exactly what you're talking about. Just do it, right? Just give it one more try. And for me, it was around page, 250, whatever. And I told her around the point in the book, around the 1/3 to halfway mark, that, you're finally going to be hooked on it. But if you give it a chance, you will not regret it. So I think I'm going to have to check my notes for what I gave its final rating. I think it was an 8 something. Let me check. Year 2. So I gave The Final Empire an 8.7 out of 10. And I think the reason, because people might get upset about it, I think the reason why I rated it so low was just because of how slow it was at the beginning. How hard it is to reach the point of, okay, yes, I need to know what happens next. To reach the point of being a page turner, right? We've all heard that term of being a page turner, and I actually take notes of when I'm officially hooked into a story, when I'm officially hooked into a book, so I know what page and what was going on at the time that the book finally, for me, became like a page turner, and I had to know what's happening next, and I didn't want to put the book down. And so for me, the Final Empire, it was the book that has taken the longest out of all the books I've read so far. The 20-something books I've read so far in the last year, it has been the slowest book to actually finally hook me. But, that's okay. Because it was definitely worth it. I pushed through. I loved it. I'm almost done with that final book, the Hero of Ages, and I gotta tell you, woo! Anybody that's read it knows, woo! I can't even. It's great. It's great. Book 2 was great as well. Better than the first one. Which Sanderson said that he didn't even intend on writing the first one. He intended on starting with the second one, but he went. I guess he decided, no, I need to add something a little extra to this, kind of an establishing book for the characters, which now, looking back, I can't even imagine the story without that first one. That first one is so crucial. So, yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Sorry it took so long. If this recording turns out well, and I'm able to edit a video, it'll really save me a lot of time. I should be able to try and get caught up with all these book reviews. I'm still behind. I was supposed to post the Blood Meridian review, and that was going to be my longest and hardest review to do because it's Blood Meridian, right? It was insane. I already had, I think, 1,000 words typed out in the script, and I wasn't even through the introduction to that video, right? And then I lost that 1,000 words. I didn't save it or something. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see. I'll try to see if I can do the second book to this, the Well of Ascension, here pretty soon. But for right now, I'm just going to concentrate on getting this edited and uploaded. So thanks for watching. See you all around.